The Mountain That Loved a Bird by Alice McLaren. Illustrated by Stephen Aitken. Read for you by Miss T. There was once a mountain made of bare stone. It stood alone in the middle of a desert plain. No plant grew on its hard slopes, nor could any animal, bird, or insect live there. The sun warmed the mountain, and the winds chilled it, but the only touch the mountain knew was a touch of rain or snow. There was nothing more to feel. All day and all night the mountain looked only at the sky, watching for the movement of billowing clouds. It knew the path of the sun that crossed the sky by day, and the course of the moon that crossed the sky by night. On clear nights it watched the slow wheeling of the far-off stars. There was nothing more to see. Then, one day, a small bird appeared. She flew in a circle above the mountain, then landed on a ledge to rest and preen her feathers. The mountain felt the dry grasp of her tiny claws. It felt the softness of her feathered body as she sheltered herself against its side. The mountain was amazed, for nothing like this had ever come to visit it from the sky before.
"Who are you?"
the mountain asked.
"What is your name?"
"I am a bird,"
replied the other.
"My name is Joy, and I come from distant lands where everything is green. Each spring I fly high into the air looking for the best place to build my nest and raise my children. As soon as I have rested, I must continue my search."
"I have never seen anything like you before,"
said the mountain.
"Must you go? Couldn't you just stay here?"
Joy shook her head.
"Birds are living things,"
she explained.
"We must have food and water. Nothing grows here for me to eat. There are no streams from which I could drink."
"If you cannot stay here, will you come back again someday?"
asked the mountain. Joy was silent for a moment.
"I fly long distances,"
she finally said,
"and I have rested on many mountains. No other mountain has ever cared whether I came or went, and I should like to return to you, but I can only do so in the spring before I build my nest, and because you are so far from food and water, I could only stay a few hours."
"I have never seen anything like you before,"
repeated the mountain.
"Even if it's only for a few hours, it would make me happy to see you again."
"There is one more thing you should know,"
said Joy.
"Mountains last forever, but birds do not. Even if I were to visit you every spring of my life, there might be only a few visits. Birds do not live very many years."
"It will be very sad when your visits stop,"
said the mountain.
"but it would be even sadder if you fly away now and never return."
Joy sat very still, nestled against the side of the mountain. Then she began to sing a gentle, bell-like song, the first music the mountain had ever heard. When she had finished her song, she said,
"Because no mountain has ever before cared whether I came or went, I will make you a promise. Every spring of my life I will return to greet you and fly above you and sing to you. And since my life will not last forever, I will give to one of my daughters my own name, Joy, and tell her how to find you, and she will name a daughter Joy also, who will come to you in turn. Each Joy will have a daughter Joy, so that no matter how many years pass, you will always have a friend to greet you and fly above you and sing to you."
"I still wish you could stay,"
the mountain said.
"but I am glad you will return."
"Now I must go,"
said Joy,
"for it is a long way to the lands that have food and water for me. Goodbye until next year."
She soared off, her wings like feathered fans against the sun. The mountain watched her until she disappeared into the distance. Year after year, when every spring came, a small bird flew to the mountain singing,
"I am Joy, and I have come to greet you."
And for a few hours the bird would fly above the mountain or nestle against its side singing. At the end of each visit the mountain would always ask,
Isn't there some way you could stay?
And Joy would always answer.
No, but I will return next year.
Each year, the mountain looked forward more and more to Joy's visit. Each year, it grew harder and harder to watch her go. 99 springs came and went in this way. On the 100th spring, when it was time for Joy to leave, the mountain asked once more,
Isn't there some way you could stay?
Joy answered, as she always did.
No, but I will return next year.
The mountain watched as she disappeared into the sky. And suddenly, its heart broke. The hard stone cracked, and from the deepest part of the mountain tears gushed forth and rolled down the mountainside in a stream. The next spring, a small bird appeared, singing,
I am Joy, and I have come to greet you.
This time the mountain did not reply. It only wept, thinking of how soon she would have to leave, and of all the long months before she would come again. Joy rested on her ledge, looking at the stream of tears. Then she flew above the mountain, and sang as she always had. When it was time for her to go, the mountain still wept.
I will return next year,
said Joy softly, and then she flew away. When the next spring came, Joy returned, carrying in her beak a small seed. The mountain still wept a stream of tears. Joy carefully tucked the seed into a crack in the hard stone, close to the stream so that it would stay moist. Then she flew above the mountain and sang to it. Seeing that the mountain was still unable to speak, she flew away once more. During the weeks that followed, the seed in the crack of the rock began to send down tiny roots. The roots reached into the hard stone, little by little spreading into yet smaller cracks, breaking through the hardness. As the roots found water in the cracks and drew food from the softening stone, a shoot rose from the seed into the sunlight. Tender green needles reached towards the light. The mountain, however, was still deep in sorrow, blinded with tears. It did not notice a plant so small. The next spring, Joy brought another seed, and the spring after that, another. She placed each one in a protected place near the stream of tears, and sang to the mountain. The mountain only wept. Years passed in this way, the roots of new plants softening the stone near the stream of tears. As softened stone turned to soil, moss began to grow in sheltered corners. Grasses and little flowering plants sprouted in hollows near the stream. Tiny insects, carried to the mountain by the winds, scurried among the leaves. Meanwhile, the roots of the very first seed went deeper and deeper into the heart of the mountain. Above the ground, what had started as a tiny shoot was growing into the trunk of a young tree, its branches offering their green needles to the sun. At last, the mountain felt the roots reaching down like gentle fingers, feeling and healing the cracks in its heart. Sorrow faded away. The mountain began to notice the changes that had been taking place, and felt its tears change to tears of happiness. Each year, Joy returned, bringing another seed. Each year, more streams ran laughing down the mountain's sides, and the ground, watered by the new streams, grew green with trees and other plants. Now that the mountain no longer wept with sorrow, it began to ask once more,
Isn't there any way you could stay?
but Joy still answered.
No, but I will return next year.
The years continued to pass, and the streams carried life far out into the plain surrounding the mountain. Finally, as far as the mountain could see, everything was green. From lands beyond the horizon, small animals began to come to the mountain. Watching those living things find food and shelter on its slopes, the mountain suddenly felt a surge of hope. Opening its heart to the roots of the trees, it offered them all its strength. The trees stretched their branches yet higher towards the sun, and hope ran like a song from the heart of the mountain to the very tip of each branch. And sure enough, when the next spring came, Joy flew to the mountain carrying not a seed, but a slender twig. Straight to the tallest tree on the mountain she flew, to the tree that had grown from the very first seed. She placed the twig on the branch in which she would build her nest. I am Joy, I have come to stay. We hope you have enjoyed this production of The Mountain That Loved a Bird. Text copyright 2008 Alice McLaren. Illustration copyright 2008 Stephen Aitken. All rights reserved.